I want to really compliment Ernest Hilaire and the people at the CIP unit in St. Lucia. I think they've done a wonderful job. We want people to come to our country who can share, like that there can be a transfer of knowledge, a transfer of technology between these countries and our countries.
I think the reality is this is about migration. In very much the same way you have skills-based migration, you have investment migration.
This is a region not defined by its size, but definitely defined by its courage, its capacity, its capability, and its firm position that it will contribute significantly to global advancement and development.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen of the press. I thank you so much for your patience. It is always wonderful to see your wonderful faces. I am Melissa Paul, Press Secretary to the Prime Minister. Today, our first presenter is Honorable Dr. Ernest Hilaire, who is the Deputy Prime Minister of St. Lucia, the Minister for Tourism, Commerce, Investment, Creative Industries, Culture, and Heritage. The Honorable Minister will update us with a few tourism statistics.
Thank you very much, Press Secretary. Primarily this morning, I want to deal with a couple of issues, mainly the tourism arrival numbers for April. I think you would recall that when we last spoke, I had indicated that I would provide the numbers. We try to do so every month. We've not yet gotten May is not yet ended, but the preliminary numbers for May in terms of the Jazz Festival are quite exciting. But we have the final numbers for April, so let me just share with you. In April 2026, stayover arrivals total 40,752, representing an 8.5% increase compared to April 2025, which was 37,546. This level of arrivals reflects the highest on record for stayover arrivals in the month of April. This strong performance reflects a notable improvement in visitor demand during the month and signals continued resilience in the stayover segments. On a year-to-year basis, January to April, stayover arrivals reached 159,084, representing a 3.7% increase over the same period in 2025, which was 153,405. Cruise arrivals in April 2026 total 53,461, representing a 34% increase compared to April 2025, which was 39,756. On a year-to-date basis, cruise arrivals reached 418,174, up 9% over the same period in 2025. This performance reflects continued strength in the cruise sector and its important contribution to total visitor arrivals. Total visitor arrivals, stayover, cruise, and yachting total 99,162 in April 2026, representing a 23% increase compared to April 2025, which was 80,748. On a year-to-date basis, January to April, total arrivals reached 596,662, up 7% compared to the same period in 2025. Of course, the U.S. market continues to dominate. We had a 3.8% increase in April 2026 over April 2025 for the U.S. market. The Canadian market had a very strong performance. April 2026 had a 45.9% increase compared to April 2025. And that's really good news for us that the Canadian market is coming back on stream. We continue to see a decline in the UK market, with April this year, 15% decline compared to April last year. And the Caribbean market also showed some very strong growth in April, recording a 39.6% increase over April 2025. So far for the year compared to January to April last year, we've seen a 17% increase in the Caribbean market. Barbados is performing strongly. Martinique and Trinidad and Tobago also performing very strongly. So far for the year, as the data shows, we've seen some significant increases in arrivals. We're also expecting May to be very good, probably one of our best arrivals in terms of May. Of course, the Jazz Festival would have contributed to this. And our preparations for Carnival continue, so we're also expecting to have a very good July. Of course, all of that can be tempered by what's happening globally. We continue to see the rise in the airfares from around the world. And although we're still seeing strong travel out of the United States, we are very, intensely watching bookings over the summer and even going into the winter. Although we're still seeing some very good signs, but persons are very responsive to what's happening globally. So we're hoping and praying that the global situation will resolve itself as soon as possible, so we won't see any downturn in our arrivals. But so far, we've seen some very, very good numbers, and our bookings also show some very strong projections for the coming months. If you go onto the SLTA website, you will notice that we've launched a new website. It's a website that is a lot more advanced to what was there before. We've embedded AI features and other analytical features that will allow us to better track visitor interest in St. Lucia and to be able to have a far greater outreach. Some of you also, I noticed my dear friend Mr. Daisy is not here today, but he probably would have noted the tie that I'm wearing this morning. I don't know how many of you are very familiar with the tie. It signifies the Arsenal Football Club. And you would have known that, Arsenal Football Club won the Premier League and in Champions League finals on Saturday. Yeah, I noticed she's wearing the Arsenal red as well, so that's a very good sign. But of course, we continue to promote sports branding as one of our tools for international engagement, and we're going to continue to do so, associating with winning football and baseball and even hockey. We just did a promotion with hockey. Again, for us, it's really important for us to utilize those opportunities to promote St. Lucia. So just watch this space. We have a lot of great news coming as it relates to international marketing. Very soon we'll be launching the Global Marketing Fund, which has been created and funded under the CIP for us to enhance St. Lucia global positioning And again, like I said, very soon we will be making a major announcement in that regard. Let me take some questions now.
Yes, yes, sir. Good morning. I listened to your figures, pretty interesting figures. How do we measure the true economic impact of those figures, the trickle down? Figures are one thing, but how do we know that the common solution really is impacted positively by those figures? Some of them you said are either near or record breaking. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, I think it is well established that, of course, the tourism figures and persons have been calling for years. We have what we call the tourism satellite accounts, which really is a methodology to measure the impact of tourism and the tourist dollar. You'd recall at the Jimmy's, I did announce the impact that the home accommodation sector is having in terms of local earnings. At the budget presentation, again, I went through that same question you asked about the methodology for measuring the impact of tourism in St. Lucia. And we are refining the instruments for us to be able to have, more accurate, impact assessment. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll release the report on the impact of Carnival, last year's Carnival, 2025 Carnival, that the Tourism Authority did collect the data on the impact of 2025 Carnival, which we will be releasing. Probably not next week, maybe in about 2 weeks' time. I want to do it just before Carnival so people get a very clear idea of the impact. We'll be doing the same for jazz. But of course, it's really important, and you are right, for us to be able to measure the impact. But one thing I can tell you for sure, you would have heard during the budget debate that mention was made that last year our tourism arrivals dropped slightly, about 2% or so. And it was very clearly stated that that had an impact across the entire economy. Food and beverage, accommodation, retail, all those things that were affected just by a decline in tourism arrivals, which showed the criticality of tourism arrivals to St. Lucia's industry, the linkages that exist. And once numbers are affected, it can affect us right across the economy. So yes, there are instruments that are used and there are measurements that are used. Whether or not they are comprehensive enough, given the fact that our tourism now is moving into more community tourism, and you have to measure the full impact, including at the community level, is a different question altogether. But yes, there is some measurements that take place.
You spoke about potential external shocks that can cause some challenges, but I want to speak about some internal shocks that can cause challenges. Many St. Lucians at this point do not feel safe. Over the last few weeks, we've seen crime on the rise again. How can visitors feel safe if locals don't?
Well, it depends on where the crime occurs and the nature of the crime that takes place. I think there is a very clear differentiation between the type of crimes that take place. I think our visitors congregate in spaces that are not normally associated with places where crime takes place, everyday crime takes place. I haven't seen any analysis of the data. We've seen a significant increase in the number of homicides, but as to where they are located and what is perceived to be the causes, I can't tell you. I noticed the last wave we've had have been domestic, a lot of domestic violence. But I don't know that in the touristic areas and the space occupied by our visitors, you've seen any, upsurge in crime. And certainly with the introduction of the Rangers unit, we have a lot more security out in the communities and in the spaces normally that visitors would be. And I think there has to be a proper analysis by the experts to say to us whether or not the increase in crime is gang-related, whether it's more domestic violence, and what's the nature of the crime that we are seeing in St. Lucia. But for now, there's absolutely no threat to our visitors. There is no report of visitors being, any feeling of being unsafe in St. Lucia.
Final question from me. Further to that end, you are Minister of Culture and Creative Industries. We often see in our culture, in our creative expression, maybe some themes that shouldn't be expressed. Maybe themes that speak to maybe toxic relationships, or themes that maybe even celebrate violence. There has been a lot of talk about the importance of holding people accountable. How can creatives be held accountable so that we express ourselves in ways that are fruitful and helpful as opposed to negative?
Well, I mean, I'm not a criminologist, so as much as I have my own personal views as to crime and why crime occurs, and my own sociological background, in terms of being a community activist in my studies, um, I leave it to the experts to really speak about some of those issues, because there is a very active debate whether music in particular, and modern day music, and particular music, is fueling some of that kind of mindset that contributes to some of the crime that we have, the gang warfare, the shootings, and glorifying, gun violence and whatnot. And there is a view that if you can eliminate those influences in the socialization process, our younger people will not be exposed to that kind of, mental, almost indoctrination. Um, you know, I don't know. I believe these are deeper and deeper issues that need to be resolved. But there's also the issue about creative expression and not suffocating creative expression. Let people express themselves, let them be creative. But I think there's only so much you can go with that kind of argument. Under no circumstances should we tolerate any expression that glorifies violence in any way. And certainly, when it comes to violence against women as a vulnerable group, particularly in relationships, because of the power plays that are involved in it, we should not be encouraging that. Respect for human beings, the language that's used on stage, and how people are described, those things should be clearly within our sights as occurrences that we should not encourage, and certainly not protected under the guise of allowing creative expression and the freedom of creative expression. So I agree with you. We have to call on creatives and singers in particular to be more, sensitive to those issues. You can't be calling on people to, to shoot each other and to retaliate and demand your respect with a gun and whatnot. You just cannot be doing that, and those things have to stop. But sometimes in a society, in a democratic society, you have to respect freedom of expression. But I'm a little old school in some of those things.
Good afternoon, Mr. Minister. I think last week you really saw vendors in the arcade, the vendors arcade, express their concerns about the development, the relocation process, etc. But what I really want to ask you is that, looking at their circumstances, and looking at the concerns expressed by Miss Marjorie in another part of the island on another development, there seems to be at least a breakdown in communication between tourism officials, between developers, and between vendors in particular. And I'm aware that stakeholder consultations would have taken place, but it appears that even despite this, there seems to be a miscommunication. And I would say miscommunication because sometimes when the vendors would tell you their concerns, if you go around and you ask different vendors their concerns, they're each saying different things, which would give an idea of there not being an understanding of what would have been agreed or so on. So how is it that the ministry would try to at least rectify many of these communication errors between the authority and the vendors themselves?
Well, I mean, first of all, I want to start off by saying the relocation and the management of the vendors arcade is not the Ministry of Tourism. Our concern was in terms of its use as a tourism, experience, a tourism product. But the Castries City Council is the landlord. GPH is the developer. Now, you made a very interesting point, and the ministry and myself, we've not been involved in it, and we've left it to the CCC as the landlord, and GPH to handle it. But you know, sometimes when I express my views on that, you know, some people don't always um, like those views, and my dear friends in the United Workers' Party always like to jump and to scream when I say those things. But sometimes they pollute the water and they incite unnecessary, you know, reactions, and they do it for cheap political reasons. And I can't overlook that. You know, they really engage in base cheap politics. And I saw it in the Bannans Bay. Look at Bannans now. Where is Tommy Descat? Where is he? You know, all the vendors, all what the fishermen and all what they went through, trying to convince them that they should be getting $1 million to be relocated and all those things, and just cheap politics. I mean, I told you all here that I was keeping quiet, and what had to happen would happen, because there was a logic to what was going on. So take the vendors, for example. Now, I have a lot of sensitivity for the vendors. Quite a few of my constituents are vendors, yeah? And I support fully the Prime Minister's announcement that vendors will get assistance. He has to get a report on who is who owes, who does not owe, who, you know, what is the loss of earnings, whatnot, and to have a decision as to who gets what support. It has to be very structured. Because when this project started, when it first started, I remember visiting the Vendors Arcade. I remember visiting. And I think we all made a commitment that anybody who is losing and is displaced, there will be some support given to them. But quite a lot of the vendors owed the Castro City Council. Owed. We write off the debt. We said to those who owed, we'll write, that your debt is written off. Now, there were some vendors that did not owe. So can you imagine you are dutiful, you pay your monthly rental of $135, I think, but some are not paying. A new government comes in, listens to the cry of the vendors, and writes off the debt of everybody. Now, you who always paying, you don't benefit from that because you are the one following the rules. You are the one keeping your contract obligation. Somebody who's not gets a blight. And everybody's told we are going to upgrade the facility. The facility needs upgrading. It was in very poor condition. And we said to everybody, there will have to be a transition, and there will be we'll try not to do it during the peak tourism cruise season, but once that season ends, there will have to be some dislocation until life returns to normal. What happens a few years later? There is debt again. So some people, even if their debt was written off, the debt is accumulating again. And now you have to have the relocation, which everybody knew 4 years ago that it was coming. They all knew that. And I heard some people said, we never knew that. Nobody told us. It's last minute they told us. I was not involved, so I cannot judge whether it was last minute or not. But nobody can say they did not know that there would be the redevelopment of the Vendors Arcade and that there will have to be some movement. So certainly they knew it. As to whether they wanted 3 months' notice or 2 months' notice, I'm not getting into that. But then what do? Some of the people you've already written off their debt, they have accumulated debts again. Do you treat them the same way that you treat some people who were dutiful in the first instance, did not benefit from the previous action, and they've continued to pay their monthly rental? Do you put them in the same category with the others? I don't think it's fair to them. So I think the Prime Minister is right to say people will get support, but let me see a report. Let me understand who owes what, who has to get what, and who's dislocated how or not before final decision is made. And I think that's fair. It's fair to my constituents who pay every month and they don't have any debt, and they did not benefit from the first write-off they had. I think it's fair to them. I think they should get compensated. But I don't think they should get the same compensation with somebody who was not paying debt, got it written off, and now has debt again, and wants the same compensation and benefit with them. I think it's not fair. So I think the Prime Minister is right. Before he makes any final determination of who gets what, he should get a report, and he should decide. And then the big question will be, do you write off the debt again and say, let's start afresh again? Should you do that? And at what point do you stop writing off the debts? And these are bigger questions. Luckily, it's not me to answer those questions. The Castro City Council will answer these questions, and maybe the minister will come to cabinet for cabinet to take a decision to guide them as to what to do, what not to do. But I think there are vendors that deserve support. They should get compensation, but I'm not one who believes everybody should get the same level of compensation, because I don't think it is fair. That's my take on it. I might get in trouble for saying that, but that's my view on it.
But even then, vendors express that the rent, nominal as it may be, is not sustainable for them, and that certainly when the season is closed, they're not able to pay that. So I think my question is, moving forward now, because all of that is past, and there'd be in a new facility, and it'd be greater traffic through the vendors arcade. How would, let's say, you as well as the CCC and other authorities as it may be, try to meet the vendors halfway in their concerns?
Halfway by doing what? I don't know the halfway.
As far as rent is concerned.
$55 a month to $60 a month?
Perhaps.
I don't know how that solves anything. I'm sure they wouldn't pay the $60. No, I'm sure they wouldn't pay the $60. I think honestly, if you ask me, I think CCC should go back to the old school, the way they used to do it. And I'm not sure if they still do it that way. You know what I would do on the day? On the day that there is a cruise ship, you pay. I would compromise. That's my personal view. I would not ask you to pay if there's no cruise ship. But if there's a cruise ship, you pay $10 for the day. We would collect more than a whole year rent of $145 if we do that. Just think about it. Because if they have 3 months when they have a ship every day, that's 90 days. And you pay $15 each day. That's the equivalent to almost a whole month, a whole year rent at $155. And the days they have no cruise ship, like now, you don't pay anything. Just pay the days when they have cruise ships in the harbor. And I'm sure. Do you still operate? Yeah, you can still operate, but you're not paying any rent because there's no cruise ship. But just pay me the day when there is a cruise ship. You'll collect more than the annual rental. Think about it. Do the maths. Do the maths, because they claim they only make money when they are cruise ships. Or that's the only, they hardly make money when there's no cruise ship. So when there is no cruise ship, there are no cruise ships, you say you don't make money, I'm not charging you. But when there is a cruise ship, pay. Pay me up front. And see if I will not collect more than the annual rental. I'm not waiting for you to pay every month. I'm coming along with a ticket master and collect the rent in the morning. You must make more. And that's the kind of discipline they probably need. I would do it differently, to be honest. But I really feel for and I said, some of my constituents have come to me, and they've paid their rent, and they're saying to me, Minister, we always pay our rent. We're not one of those who are delinquent. And by the way, not every vendor is delinquent. Huh? Not every vendor is delinquent. There are those that do pay their monthly rent. Okay, they might delay by a month sometimes because they probably have a bad month at home. You have a child that's sick or whatever. But there are those who pay, and it's not fair to them, especially the fact that all the debt was written off. So how many times will you write off the debt? So yes, we want to support the vendors. This is a Labour Party, but at the same time, you can't create a culture where people just abuse the system time and time again, and just tell you, putting people first, so put me first. You know, it has to be a more serious engagement than that.
Good afternoon, Mr. Minister. Over the years, there has been conversation relative to the idea that there is a bit of there's not enough diversity when you look at vendors. So you have about 6 vendors line up selling the same thing, and so it presents this sort of increased competition. So with the introduction of the new upgrades to the vendors arcade, is there a possibility that perhaps the offerings might be a bit more diversified?
Well, that's my dream. And in fact, last year, the Ministry of Tourism actually had a special program, a competition, where we invited the schools to design souvenirs. And we had an exhibition to show off all what the students came up with. And I think we started that process to start saying, think of alternative souvenirs and tokens and what can be sold. And it's the reason why, for example, at Ansfair, the beautiful development on Millennium Highway, we don't want any vendor there that is selling the same t-shirts. It'll have to be more unique and exceptional items that will be on sale, because we want to encourage persons to move away from the same t-shirts. I mean, most of them order their stuff from St. Martin, so you know they get the same stuff, and everybody sells the same item to the vendors. Now, someone can argue it's very difficult to get a proper range of items, you know, outside of what is readily available, and that may be true, and the cost of it too. But the fact is, we have to try and add on new items, new offerings that are different. Everybody can have a few of the same, but you know, to try and differentiate and to offer other things to the vendors, because they see it everywhere they go. And as we build lookouts around the island, you know, with facilities, you don't want to leave Castries and you drive and you make 5 stops, and every stop you go to is the same t-shirt, the same cap, the same, you know, stuff. You want to see different items, and that's where we'll have to go.
Speaking of the Aspire project, are you in a position to provide an update? I know that jazz was actually supposed to happen there.
Well, we had some supply chain issues. Some of the finishings only just came in, I think, last week, because you know the shipping lanes were affected and some of the stuff did not come on time. But hopefully we should be opening the facility at the ending of June. We'll have a grand opening. It won't be jazz, but it might be more soca opening or something. But it's a fantastic venue. I'm sure Sant will probably arrange a visit for the media, or probably when we open it end of June. You'll all be invited to be there. But it's a really special place.
One suggestion from the solution community is that of shifting the focus away from controlling the themes explored, for example, in music, plays, festivals, etc., by artists, to shifting the focus to more creating this sort of adult-friendly concerts. For example, when you look at jazz, they were saying maybe the time has come for us to make jazz an adult affair. So no children allowed, as opposed to telling artists what to sing, how to sing it, when we know their catalog, we know the nature of their music, and we know the content of their music. How possible or feasible is this?
Well, I think some shows can be like that. I think if we speak of the nighttime shows, the Friday night, the opening, you can start thinking along that concept, because you really don't expect, you know, children to be at some of those shows. But when you speak about the Saturday and the Sunday, which starts at 2 o'clock, the Mother's Day show, I don't think you should say children should not be there. But then again, we should have the right artists for those events. But certainly the opening and the Friday night show, it can be a no children admission show. But then somebody will complain and say, oh, nobody's supposed to say, you know, that in a public. Well, there'll always be some people that will oppose it. But I'm one who believes that there should be spaces where adults can go and have adult entertainment, and that's their choice, that's their desire, and you shouldn't necessarily say that an artist cannot use a couple of swear words, because, you know, I think there's a time and place for it. It should not be where there are children attending and participating. But adults are adults, and if you want to go and have, you know, a show where there's comedy, I mean, you go overseas to some of the comedy shows and you hear the jokes that are given. You know, why shouldn't you want to go and listen to a comedy show and hear adult jokes? Why not? You're an adult. You know, that's what being an adult is all about. That, you know, you can go and, you know, take in stuff and be able to differentiate good from bad. But There'll always be somebody that
Would you
complains.
suppose this approach would sort of diminish the economic impact of the festival?
No. On the contrary, there are certain artists, if you bring them down, will attract a lot more individuals because, you don't want a watered down version. You want, you know, it as it is. So I don't think so. If anything is different, you'll probably attract more persons.
Finally, from me, there is this notion that I know that preparations are well underway for the St. Lucia Carnival experience. There is conversation, however, that the festival has become over commercialized and it's been catered more to an international audience. So you have fete enthusiasts like myself who complain a lot about ticket prices being quoted in US dollars. Why is there a need for such when I'm a St. Lucian citizen who should pay in Eastern Caribbean dollars? So many persons are saying that the festival has been, over commercialized and it's been catered more to an international audience as opposed to us people within the local community, when persons like yourself often boast that carnival is inclusive and it's supposed to be for us to immerse ourselves in the experience. What say you?
Well, it is inclusive, and we continue to make it more inclusive. There will be events that will be introduced for the public to enjoy at no cost. So, for example, we're looking to bring back Line Jam, which is, you remember the old Line Jam, to bring it back. Nobody has to pay as such, and you can enjoy yourself at low cost. When you look at the cost of tickets for Calypso finals, for Soca finals, for King and Queen of the Bands, Panorama, they're very, very, very affordable. Very affordable. So the prices are not keeping out the public. But if you want to go to a pop or you want to go to an escape, then hello, you have to be prepared to pay the price. You cannot want to go for the finesse and for the high valued experience and not want to pay the cost of it. Now, the truth is, to be honest with you, they cost money to put on. I can tell you. My historical involvement, even in jazz, do you know how much it costs to put on one of those events? You mean to put on? Okay, let me just say Carnival for you. We added, remember King and Queen of the Bands? We decided to expand it and have a 1 year free show and to have DYP play whatnot. That's an extra $270,000 already. Just the cost of infrastructure, the stage, the band, the lighting, the sound system. It costs money, Huh?
We're making it back.
We don't. No, actually, it's a loss. It's a loss. No, it is a loss. There are not enough people buying tickets to meet that cost. No, there's no cost. Jazz comes the closest. But a lot of the reason why jazz makes millions of dollars in ticket sales is because a lot of foreigners, international, comes and they pay. Jazz tickets are not cheap in St. Lucia. So we will make millions of dollars ticket sales. But Carnival, there's no way we make anywhere near the monies that we spend on the show for Carnival. The prize money, the cost of infrastructure, it costs a lot of money. And I know, for example, if Color Me Red, which, every year, and when you bring an artist like Marshall, trust me, when you look at the riders, the song system they want, and all the provision they want, it costs a lot of money. A lot. So therefore, the ticket sales, do add up to make it. So if you want to go to all the breakfast fetes and all, all of them, you have to be prepared to pay the money because it costs money. And St. Lucian's a little different. If you've been to the other islands, the events, and you go to the VIP experience, for example, compared to what we do in St. Lucia, is really totally different. And St. Lucians still complain it's never good enough. A St. Lucian who goes to a VIP expect to eat all night, drink all night. If he comes there at 1 o'clock in the morning, he expects there to be food waiting for him because he's in VIP. And, but of course, you see. But you can't expect to go to an event and food is being served from 8 o'clock until 3 in the morning. Yeah, but then your money just can't cater for that. Because by the time you pay, say you pay $500 for a VIP ticket, at least $300 has gone into the cost of the infrastructure. of that money. And then, so you can expect to
You're
get.
not thinking about that as the average layman.
That's true. You don't think about it, but I can tell you, you can go to a VIP in Trinidad, and your 500 US is just to enter. You still have to buy your drinks. You know what I mean? But St. Lucia is a little different. And different islands have different experiences when you go to that. But I don't know that we have over commercialized Carnival. I think in many ways, a lot of the promoters have to make back their money. I mean, we don't have heavy sponsorship like we used to. I recall telling individuals in the early days when in Red Carnival, I can remember the amount of money used to raise through sponsorship. That don't really exist anymore. The bands are struggling. People believe, the Zuvos and the Just for Fun and Fusion, they make a lot of money. That's not the case. I mean, sometimes people have to put up mortgages and put up all kinds of stuff just to get cash flow to make it happen for the year. I mean, you have faith it will come through at the end of the year, but it overdrafts and a lot of stress and pressure, sleepless nights, and you're worrying of what can happen and what may go wrong to make it happen. I mean, if you have a good year, you have a good year. But if it collapses under you, you're in a lot of trouble. So there's not a lot of money that's been made. There's not sponsorship, even in sports though. I remember when I used to be involved in charge of sports. I mean, the amount of money we used to raise for school sports in terms of sponsors. Right now, I mean, the national associations are crying out for sponsors for national sporting events. To get a sponsor wants to give you, $3,000, $4,000, and even in Carnival too, when you get $5,000 sponsorship, the amount of free tickets you have to give them is $3,000 worth. That kind of stuff. So the landscape has changed a lot. A lot, a lot, a lot. So have some consideration for the promoters and the band leaders to ask for Calypso Tent. For Calypso Tent to take place in St. Lucia, the government of St. Lucia has to sponsor it. That's the truth. If we don't sponsor Calypso Tent, there'll be no Calypso Tent in St. Lucia. Government pays for just about everything for a Calypso Tent to be organized in St. Lucia. If we don't do it, no Calypso Tent, no competition. That's the reality. Yeah, well, you probably should try the tent and see if you're.
Good afternoon, Minister. But in regards to the whole landscape, especially as you say, with sponsorship has changed, will this mean that a whole new tactic needs to be put in place, especially when it comes to future events moving forward, especially with communities and associations now getting difficulty actually getting the funding? Will this be a whole new tactic that needs to be reworked for the future?
Well, as a promoter, as an organizer, you have two options. Well, ticket sales or sponsorship. And if private enterprise, private business is not coming in with the sponsorship, and that's where we have to say thank you to some of the private sector sponsors we have, like Bank of St. Lucia, First National, you have, Lucilec, you have some of the others that do come out and support. Or you just raise the ticket sales, the ticket prices, make the consumer pay for it, and that's where you start crying out, it's too expensive. Somebody like you who probably go to how many feds? Do you know what your bill is? To to go to all the feds that you have to go to.
Can't go to all if they're 485.
That's true. You're right. Yeah, that's why some people stay home and they don't go because they feel they can't afford. And which is why for Carnival we're trying to make it inclusive and we're putting on events. At one time, remember, there used to be Peter party in the yard. We're hoping we can bring back something like that. And there's actually somebody who suggested to us, give them some support to bring it back. Not necessarily in CSA yard, but somewhere else, which we should do once we can identify the resources, again, to make it inclusive, so that more St. Lucians can enjoy Carnival and not at some huge cost. So I think we should, as a government, provide for those kind of free enjoyment of the festival, and those who want to go to the more expensive blocos and whatnot can spend their money and go and things. So we have to, but you either raise the ticket price or you raise through sponsorship. It's one or the other.
Okay, thank you. And just my last question from me. If we can just go back to the arrival statistics for April. I know we still have a decline from the UK market, and I know the UK normally follows the more family-oriented type of travels. And I know St. Lucia is more the honeymoon destination. I just want to ask, has there been any updates or implementations of any other family-oriented things that we can actually have within St. Lucia?
Yeah, but it's two. In terms of the two issues, one, the room stock that suits that market, but also to the flights. So we are continuing our discussions to bring in more seats. From October this year, BA will go to a daily flight dedicated to St. Lucia. We won't share with any other country. So you'll see St. Lucia, Grenada, St. Lucia, Tobago, St. Lucia, Guyana. That would cease. The flight would terminate in St. Lucia, which means every seat is for St. Lucia. So we're going to increase the number of seats from October. We know we're waiting for Isla Family Resort to be completed. And we're working, but it will take some time, take a year, 2 years, at least a couple of years for us to get the room stock back to where we want it to be. So it will take some time. But more important for us is to just get more seats into St. Lucia. And we're working on that. And hopefully we can make an announcement very soon.
Minister, two questions from me. Going back to the vendor situation, we know that the Prime Minister did say he was awaiting a report. He also stated that once vendors meet certain requirements or criteria, the government deems them eligible, they would be getting assistance for their displacement. Would you be able to tell us what that criteria is?
No, I can't. No. But I know there should be a criteria. I think I kind of hinted at what I would expect to be part of that. I mentioned debt, for example. So, but I don't know what criteria the Prime Minister would use.
Okay, and boardwalk, we're getting closer to Carnival. Do you have an update on that?
Yeah. No, seriously, I've been pressurizing them. Again, supply chain, they're waiting for finishings to come in, and they're hoping the ship can come in this week because I have warned them that this must be finished by Carnival. They promised me it will. But they're waiting for some shipments to come in. And once the shipments come in, they can complete the and it's supposed to go all the way down to the vendors arcade. Yeah, it's supposed to go all the way down. So, they're not finished yet.
So what's already there? Is there more? As in seating?
Yeah, there'll be more coming in, more coming. Yeah. Yeah, it's coming. Yeah. It's coming. Yeah. I'll call Mr. Lanzano at GPH and tell him I'm not the only one fretting about things. But but on a serious note, we spoke about it, and they are waiting for shipments to come in. They're just supply chain issues around the place now.
So the whole extension to the Venezati, would that be completed before Carnival? Or?
No, I don't think so. But they have to do it all the way. I'm not sure how they're going to design it, but it has to be all the way down. So.
And do we have any updates on the hotel that's supposed to be coming along the Radway ramp area, the blue diamond?
What I was told is that they're submitting their drawings to DCA in June, and hopefully before the end of the year they can start some work there. To me, that's the first time you've ever asked a question. Good afternoon.
That is not true.
I'm sure everybody agrees with me.
Good afternoon. Yes, my name is Chelsea, by the way. Thank you very much, Queen.
My name is Chelsea, by the way.
I didn't even know your name. You've been there for
My name is also Chelsea.
The propaganda. Yes.
My name is Chelsea because my father is an Arsenal fan.
Oh, wow.
I'm sure he's feeling the blues, right?
Okay, my question, Caribbean Airlines, I think they just discontinued some routes that they had that they implemented in 2023. Now, I have not seen St. Lucia's name on that list, but are there any implications? Would you say that we kind of survived because our numbers are a bit bigger than what's coming out of the rest of the Caribbean? And does this reflect positively for us here in St. Lucia?
Well, we are in discussions and we intend to hold some real serious discussions because we don't want to be included. Our numbers are actually quite good and we want them to expand and not reduce. So we are discussing them. The Prime Minister, Minister of Finance made resources available for us to intensify our regional marketing, and we intend to, I mentioned to you the Caribbean having done very well, Trinidad done really well, and Barbados, and we want that to continue. So we are going to be engaging them to see how they can expand rather than reduce. How could your father have done that to you? Oh, your mother.
Just to go back to Calypso, there are many who would say that Calypso at this point is a public service, and that it's needed. So in addition to investments already given, I know a lot of Calypsonians are calling for increased investment to drive training and workshops and interest among young people, not just for singers but for writers, musicians, stagehands, etc. Do you think that is something that's achievable, if not within this year, but in the next season?
Well, I mean, we have done some training. We did a couple of workshops for lyricists, for writing, and we actually introduced about 3 years ago, an award for all the writers whose songs made it to the finals. They got compensated prize money. We're hoping to introduce it for the arrangers now, whose songs made it to the finals for soca, well, for all three genres of music. But we have to do it. But if you ask me, I think the area that needs more support now is the pan sides. And we have introduced this year the school panorama. And, in my constituency, we just started a small pan side in Marigo, Bassa Joseph. I'll be hoping to do it in a couple of other areas. I know Diamond Steel is coming back on. We got the pan yard, we got a pan for them. They will be making a guest appearance this year. But it costs so much money to put on a pan side and to take part in Panorama. A lot. So I'm committed to seeing how we can get more monies to assist them. I don't know if we'll be able to do anything this year, but certainly we want to grow PAN in the schools and in the communities. Calypso, from all accounts, is very much alive in the schools. Very, very much alive in the schools. In fact, from listening to the officer who was responsible, there was more interest in Calypso than in soca at the schools, which probably says something. So let's see what happens. But yes, we provide support already.
Okay, and I guess the last one from me would be last week there was a release from the National Workers Union that workers employed by the St. Lucia Tourism Authority would now be represented by them in the negotiations. As tourism minister, what are your thoughts on this, and I guess generally for unionization within the sector at large?
No, I mean, I would never be fond of opposing workers, seeking representation and joining a union. I think it's a fundamental right of every worker, and I would be the biggest supporter and voice for workers to actually join unions and to seek representation. So I don't think all bodies that claim to be unions are actually unions, but the point is I'm a strong supporter of union representation and workers having the right to join unions. So you won't find me opposing that. That's it. Thank you very much. You want to hold this? In case anybody wants the data. Okay?
One of the questions I would like of that tie.
You want a tell her?
My collection.
All right. I'll give you more than that shortly. Yeah. You want a title? No. I can get a shirt if you want. Arsenal shirt. Huh? Yeah. Chelsea, you want a shirt too? Hello. Arsenal shirts? At home? From whom? Oh, I thought you said.
No, I said my father. My mother named me Chelsea because my father's an Arsenal fan. It was then very
Oh, seriously? Did you realize that? No, now I get it. That's grounds for divorce, you know, and separation. You can't do that?
Yeah.
Oh, your father must be a special man.
Very, very.
Tell him I say so. Yeah. All right. I heard the Prime Minister speak of the Love St. Lucia campaign. And I smiled when he did it. And we smiled because it is a popular refrain of his that we must, grow what we eat and eat what we grow, Mr. Speaker. And we must harvest more water, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, on page 64 in the budget address, the Prime Minister made a very specific point.
This year, the Love St. Lucia campaign, will encourage hotels and citizens to love and consume more of what we produce. We will eat what we grow. We will grow what we eat. We will use what we produce and consume locally produced products.
If we teach our people to love what we produce, to consume what we produce, it reduces our reliance on foreign products, Mr. Speaker. It means we give more space for our manufacturing sector to grow and to develop because our people are demanding what it is that we are producing. And they will also put pressures on us to produce what they want, Mr. Speaker. So whilst we are building up businesses, we're giving them the capacity to get financing, to expand their capabilities. We are telling our people to demand from them the things that they want to consume, Mr. Speaker. And we're starting, Mr. Speaker, to complete the circle.
First, what is life? Glose la vie. What is life? Yet for too long, this truth was betrayed by a system in decay. The Northern Pipeline was over 40 years old, corroded and bleeding. Nearly half of all water produced was lost before reaching a single home. That was not policy, that was failure.
Government has taken the decisive position that the entire administration of WASCO will come under review. In this regard, Cabinet has formed a committee to work in conjunction with the International Financial Corporation of the World Bank, the IFC, to prepare an appropriate public-private partnership, PPP framework for WASCO. In the meantime, WASCO will work on the following projects: the Patience Water Supply Redevelopment Project, upgrade of the pipeline from Bonte to Grosili, Tibbles Water Supply Rehabilitation Project, John Compton Dam Raw Water Pipeline Replacement Project.
Mr. Speaker, we are not merely repairing pipes. We are executing a data-driven transformation. We are rehabilitating the northern transmission lines. We are upgrading the Tibbles treatment plant. And we are aggressively advancing both the John Compton Dam pipeline and the Patience Water Supply Project.
Last week, the government of St. Lucia announced the establishment of a coroner's court, and with it, the appointment of St. Lucia's first coroner. Several justice sector reforms aimed at improving court efficiency, reducing delays, and strengthening public confidence in the justice system continue to advance across St. Lucia. Among the key initiatives currently underway are the implementation of the Swift Justice and Criminal Backlog Reduction Court, expansion of virtual court operations at the Borderley Correctional Facility, and continued upgrades to court infrastructure, including the construction of the halls of justice and refurbishment of the Soufrière courthouse.
Good morning. I broke the party.
Yes. Do I start over? Cameraman? Okay. When your boss walks in.
Yeah. He's a mystery, remember that?
Yes. For many years, criminal matters in St. Lucia remained before the courts for extended periods, with some cases taking years to be heard and resolved. On March 19, 2026, the government of St. Lucia officially opened the Criminal Backlog Reduction Court under the Swift Justice Project to help speed up the handling of older criminal matters before the High Court. Approximately 100 matters were disposed of between February and May 2026 as part of ongoing efforts to reduce delays within the criminal justice system. Additionally, the continued expansion of the virtual court operations at the Borderley Correctional Facility represent another step in modernizing the justice system. Using Zoom-based technology, inmates are able to appear remotely before the courts for approved proceedings, helping improve efficiency, reduce delays, and reduce the need for inmate transportation between Borderley and court facilities. Furthermore, the refurbishment of the Soufrière courthouse will improve facilities for members of the public, strengthen safety measures, and enhance the overall operation of the court matters within the district. The courthouse will also accommodate family matters, improve access to justice for residents within Soufrière and surrounding communities. Additionally, finishing works remain ongoing and are expected to be completed within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Among other initiatives, the government is also continuing work toward the development of St. Lucia's first national crime prevention policy, informed by national surveys, statistical analysis, and evidence-based planning. At the Borderley Correctional Facility, modernization efforts will continue with greater focus on rehabilitation, reintegration, and skills development through expanded vocational, agricultural, and inmate support programs. The government says continued investments in justice reform, prevention, and institutional strengthening remain important to improving the public confidence and support safer communities across St. Lucia. With that, I introduce our final presenter, the Prime Minister himself, Honorable Philip G. Pierre.
Thank you very much. All yours.
Good morning, Prime Minister. How are you?
I'm very fine, thanks.
Very fine.
I'm very fine.
Nice to have you. It's such a long time.
It is?
Yes.
Wow, you miss me?
You missed one, it's a long time.
You miss me?
In fact, yeah, in fact.
Did you miss me?
I did. Yes, we did. Prime Minister, there has been a suggestion from the general public that capital punishment be reinstated in St. Lucia as a viable means of curtailing the prevalence of crime. How feasible is this?
That is a serious issue in the country. Every day someone tells me, bring back hanging, every day. It's complex. It has become an international issue, and there are countries who suffer reprisals if they introduce hanging. So it's a matter that we have to think of very, very carefully. I will not venture to give an opinion on it now. I can't. It will have to be like example, the Catholic Church opposes capital punishment. You're aware of that, right? So it's a very complex issue. It's not an issue that we can just proclaim on. At this point, I'm not willing to say, nor am I in a position to say whether we will bring back hanging or not. But I can tell you, many people in the country are asking for the return of hanging, of capital punishment. Many people. Some people have been saying you move from hanging to the lethal injection. Many people, but I will not venture an opinion at this time.
Thank you. You would.
It's probably something we should do some research on, because incidentally, I was watching UBTV last night, and then they were speaking about what the reaction of people in St. Vincent to it's just a completely different topic, to being a republic and being a monarchy. And surprising, St. Lucia was very high in wanting to be a republic. I couldn't believe it. St. Lucia was surprising. It shocked me. St. Lucia was very high. The survey said that St. Lucia was, I think, apart from the countries that are already a republic, St. Lucia was the highest. More people wanted to be a republic than want to stay on one. It surprised me. It's some research being done by Professor Giles Barrow and on UWTV. It's something you should look at. It's very interesting. Yeah, sorry. That's just an aside.
Prime Minister, you would have indicated several occasions at many press briefings that under your administration, you have given perhaps the most resources to police officers across the island.
And you heard some more this morning.
Yes. Beyond vehicles and bulletproof vests, what investments has been made in areas such as intelligence gathering, forensic technology, CCTV cameras, etc.?
You would appreciate that I can't come in public and say to the public of St. Lucia that we have intelligence, we have human intelligence. Can I do that? I mean, people who ask that are really pushing the button to impossibility. How can I come to the public and say to them how much intelligence we have? So what's the use of intelligence? And let's be realistic. I heard some people, for their own political reasons, showing that around the place. You want me to come and tell the public, oh, you know, we have intelligence, we have somebody here, we have somebody there, and can I do that? I can't. I can tell you, much of the crime in this country, if it wasn't for intelligence, it would have been worse. It would have been worse if the intelligence did not exist. And I want to congratulate the police for the way they use that intelligence, but they cannot go out and tell you what they're doing. Which policeman says, which law enforcement agency says the level of intelligence? It's impossible. The people who ask that are being unrealistic and they've been political. I still without any fear or favor. No law enforcement agency ever says the level of intelligence. All I can tell you that in most of the crime in St. Lucia, that is solved, there is some level of intelligence driven in most of it. I can say that for now. Most of it.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Beyond intelligence.
How many CCTV cameras they are in the country? There are CCTV cameras in the country. They can be more, they will be more, but I will not tell you where they are. I can't, apart from what you can see. You see, I'll tell you something. There's a piece written by Dr. Stephen King on crime and violence. I recommend that. I began reading it over the weekend. I recommend that Dr. King not exposes, but he has a public discussion on that. And you know it's the complex nature of crime. I began reading it over the weekend. Crime, Violence and Crime by Dr. Stephen King. And you see, not as simplistic as we seem to think, you know. We just, when I say we, I don't mean you. People just spout these things out. Just say these things for their own reasons. Just say it out. Just say it out. You understand? It's a very complex issue. Very complex. And Stephen King, he draws a correlation between public health and crime. The propensity to violence, he draws that correlation. It's interesting reading. And you see, it's something that's not as simplistic as you'd like to make it believe. Not simplistic. So I want to tell you that the government, why would a prime minister want a country with crime? Why would any prime minister? not only Labour Party prime ministers, any prime minister. Why would any prime minister want to have a country where the crime is pervasive? It's not. It's not. I mean, this is a question that's. You think the prime minister just lost elections? We want a country of crime, even though there was crime when he was there also. No country wants crime. No country. But the fact is, this is a complex situation. We have to treat it. Some people think it's a public health policy. Some people think it's something wrong in the psyche of the people. Some people think it's a very complex issue and not anything you have. I'm very concerned. I continue to be concerned. And I'm sure all politicians, all well-meaning politicians are concerned. And I understand that they're concerned. But it's complex. So let's not believe we can have answers on a talk show. The answers to just crime problem will not come on any talk show. It won't come on any Facebook page or any Facebook rant. It will come by being mature, sitting down as a country and discussing. And that's what I'm willing to do. But I'm very concerned. I'll continue to be concerned.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Finally, for me, there has, again, you stated on many occasions that it was under your administration that the police would have received the most resources.
That's a fact.
That's a fact.
Physical resources and manpower resources.
Yes. Yes, thank you. But there has been discourse about shortages of police resources, in that there is a reality that perhaps somebody goes to a police station to file a report, and an officer cannot, pursue his duties because there aren't enough vehicles. Are you satisfied with the operational readiness of police officers across the island?
First of all, I don't get involved with operational matters, so I can't opine on operational readiness. What I can tell you is that the police force will always need more resources. It always needs more resources. Every police force needs more resources. But the fact is, we have to be realistic of what we can do and what we cannot do. We have to be realistic about it. St. Lucia has a health and security levy of 2.5%. It raised $40 million last year. $40 million. That's what it raised last year. There have been cries. Stop it. Stop the health and security levy. No one has said where we will get the revenue to deal with the issues. What I can see, again, as I said before, within our fiscal realities, within the fiscal constraints that we have as a government, we will continue to have investments in the enforcement agencies. You heard what the Ministry of Justice is doing. What we're doing now is going to have some softer measures. I mentioned in the budget some softer measures. Truancy. It's a holistic approach that we take it, and we are going to continue. As to resources, within the government's fiscal ability, we'll continue to give resources. We'll continue. Right now, we are about to recruit 80 new officers. We just recruited some people for the fire service at Bordelais. So we're going to continue doing it. But it's challenging. We have realities that no one says how they'll solve them, I've never heard any talk show host talk about the price of fuel, how we control that. I've never heard anyone come with a reasonable explanation of what do we do with the price of fuel. That's a reality we have to face. So I'm saying to you is that I am very concerned. And we've taken measures. I don't know if you know that. We're doing some GPH, they're doing some improvements to the vendors' arcade. Now, the Labour government, a Labour government is a government that is a government that sees about people, all people, vendors, businessmen, students, workers. The Labour Party government is a government that puts people first. The vendors of this country operated in the vendors arcade in conditions that were not good. The investment of GP8 says that the vendors have to be displaced. There was an initial position that they're being displaced during the non-cruise season, which is the best time to displace them because there's no business during that period. There are no cruise ships. There was also the position that vendors do not pay their rental, which is about $137 a month. So the thinking was that they would be displaced during that time, and they would be returned when the premises are renovated. I listened to the pleas, I listened to the complaints, I listened to the mistruths, I listened to the half-truths, I listened to the misinformation, I listened to all of that. And after quiet contemplation, I took a position that will give the vendors some form of compensation. Because that's what we are about. That's what the Labour Party is about. The Labour Party is not about making workers putting workers at an undue hardship. That's not what we're about. Our history is clear, you know. We've never said to workers, mind your business and we'll mind ours. We've never said so. We've never said to public servants that the government will run the country and you listen. We've never said so. That's not what we're about. Some people have forgotten that other people have said so. We've never said to the workers of this country, shut up and listen. We are about consensus. We are about talking to them. That's our history. So I decided, with the support of the Minister of Housing and the Cabinet, that we'd pay some compensation. So as we speak, we are in the process of working out what we'll pay, and very shortly we'll make an announcement on the compensation for the vendors in the vendors arcade. We know they did not pay their rent. We know that, some. But again, you have to understand, to my mind, these are two different things. Right? But we will be paying them, we will be giving them some form of compensation for loss of income. All the vendors in the vendors arcade. We're doing that. That's what Labour is about. That's what Labour is about. That's our history, you know. We are party of George Charles. And I've always told you, young journalists, to read about George Charles. I've said to you so many times, read about George Charles. That's what we're about. We are a party that always sees, we are the party that passed the Contract of Services Act. We are a party that passed the Labor Code. We are a party that said equal pay for men and women. We are a party that said once 51% of the people are represented, by law you must let them have the trade unions. That's what we are about. We are a party of the minimum wage. We are a party of incentives of businessmen. That's what we're about. So when it comes to workers' issues, and seeing about the plight of workers, we are upfront, so the vendors will get compensated. And I think that they deserve it, and I want to, when next round, pay their rent.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And finally from me, no doubt you would have seen, the rise in gun violence across the island. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, we are currently at homicide number 35. Would you consider St. Lucia a safe place? There is
Very safe. If you also note that there's been a decrease in the crimes. And if you look at this, and again, don't misquote me. If you look at the category of crimes, you see there's been an improvement. Right or wrong? Things there's been less crime, huh? I'll have to double check it. There's been, in terms of other categories of crime, no crime is right. Don't be misquoted. No crime. One crime is too much. Right? But you have to look at the nature, and I'm not making any excuse for crime, but look at the nature of the gun violence, the nature.
Lives are being lost.
And I'm very, very concerned about it. But tell me, give me a reason. How do you stop an insane person from behaving in an insane manner? I want some solutions now. Tell me, how do you stop an insane person from behaving in an insane manner?
I'm certain that there are avenues that can be explored.
For every insane person?
Not for every insane person.
How do you stop somebody who is suffering from a heavy dose of emotions, emotional upheavals, and how do you stop him?
I don't think it's an excuse to pursue crime.
That's not an excuse. No, I'm saying, how do you stop it? I want to help, because the prime minister is being blamed for 35 murders. I take it. I'm the prime minister of the country. I take anything they give me.
And also the Minister for National Security.
I'll take it. I want to ask somebody for a solution. Tell me, how do you stop it? What do you do? How, apart from what we didn't continue to do? And I'm ready to get the solutions, How do you stop it? Tell me what can be done. I've not raised my hands, Every day we do new things. Every day. But I want to tell someone, tell me, what do you do? Tell me the steps that we should take, apart from sitting down in the air-conditioned comfort and raving and ranting. Tell me, in the front line, I want you to give me, you don't want to be health and security levy. You don't want to increase taxes. You don't want to have, you want health care. You want education care. You want new roads. You want everything, right? And we are doing the best we can. We spend more money on health and security than any other government. I'm not raising my hands in defeat. I'm talking about facts. I am saying to you that it's more complex than we try to make it seem. It's more complex. It's a complex issue that's raised, that the whole Caribbean is suffering from. And that's not an excuse, it's a fact. It's a very complex issue. So let's just sit here and pretend that it's a matter that you have to blame the Prime Minister because you don't support the government.
But Prime Minister, why are we comparing ourselves to other nations? I think
You
35.
must compare something. Who you want to compare?
To date is a bit too much for our population.
Of course it's too much. But you have to begin to classify it. You have to begin to classify it. You have to begin I have said from the beginning, I don't want to be misquoted. It's too much. I've said it from the beginning, and I continue to say that in spite of how people try to misquote me and deal with half-truths. It's too much. I'm saying to you, I'll put the most resources I can. I've increased the number of policemen. I have done more than any other prime minister as far as law enforcement is concerned, both social and in the run. I've done more than anybody else, including the government. I think Dr. Kennedy and myself, we've done the most. So I'm not making excuses. I'm speaking to people. I'm saying that it's not a matter that you can blame one man for. You can't, because it's complex. And it's everybody's concern. It's everybody's concern. Understand? So I agree, but I need you to come and tell me some solutions. Let's not just get, and I'm not annoyed at you, I'm annoyed, I'm concerned at the way people are taking this thing and being political about it to get at Philip J. Pierre. I've said that job is a temporary job. I've said so many times before. The people of St. Lucia, there are people who are annoyed if I say we got elected on 1st December. I've said something wrong. I haven't said anything wrong. So I don't stop. Philip J. Pierre is just temporary. Somebody else is going to be there. I accept that. My father did not die and leave the Prime Minister of St. Lucia for me. On Saturday, the people of Cashew East, I want to thank them. 29 years I've represented them. 29 years, before you were born. Right? I represented them, right? And I thank them for that. I thank them for that. So that's what keeps me going. Not people raving and ranting, the people that I represent. That's what keeps me going. And anytime I go, I walk the streets. Up to this morning, the lady says, "Thank you, Prime Minister." That's what keeps, not raving and ranting and trying to make me look bad for personal reasons. It's what the people who elected me, the people who've increased my majority. You know what it is to be on the sixth election and your majority increases? I mean, come on. If you think I can be thankful and try my best to improve the quality of life, that's what I'm doing. But I'm very concerned about the crime situation, very concerned.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. I'm okay, I'm fine, yes. Now let's stay away from the politics for a bit, from the ranting and the raving that's coming from everywhere. Do you think it's time that those authorities or those organizations, sorry, those people in charge actually start holding themselves accountable? I think it's time for accountability. You've provided the resources, yes? You've increased the numbers, yes. But there still seems to be a gap in terms of how certain crimes or criminal elements are dealt with, are handled, and everybody seems to be pointing fingers and nobody wants to take the blame. So you're the man at the helm, obviously. They might want to blame you, but it is time that those places start to take accountability. And how are you as Prime Minister going to start now coming down on those people in the system that are failing to do their jobs?
I made a statement the other day. I talk about the doctrine of separation of powers. It's a doctrine that you must hold. Let me explain something to you about the way this thing works, right? There's something called the separation of powers. There's the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. The judiciary must be independent. It must be. Even though sometimes the decisions they make are emotionally distressing, they must be independent. I support the complete independence of the judiciary. But I hope that people in the judiciary live in the real world. So these, the Prime Minister, I can't speak to a magistrate. And the people who make these statements, they know that. They know that. They're just being deliberate. They know very well. They know the Prime Minister can't speak to a magistrate. They know the Prime Minister can't speak to a judge. They know the Prime Minister can't speak to the Chief Justice. The Prime Minister, through the legislature, he passes laws. These laws must be within the Constitution. So you can say whatever you want, but when you pass a law, it has to pass the test of the Constitution. And that's where the judiciary comes in place. So any law we pass in the legislature, if it doesn't meet the test of the Constitution, is thrown out and we can do nothing about it. And the people who say we can do nothing about it, they are being deliberate in their misleading of the public. So, the law goes according to evidence. And again, when you speak about intelligence, there's a difference in intelligence and evidence. So you can know everything, but if you don't have the evidence that can listen, I was scared because I'm being misquoted every day for deliberate reasons. The evidence is what calls, not intelligence, not knowledge, evidence. The court works by evidence. So even we here, we have a lot of facts about things. Oh, the man did so, he said so, he did so, we heard him. Evidence. Can that stand the test? He's a lawyer. He's a law student. He will tell you. He's a law, and you're a law student? Right. So, and I understand what you're saying, the emotion is raw. If it was my sister, I would want to die. My daughter worse, although they do things to your daughter all the time. That's another story. If it was, I'd have gone crazy. Understand the emotion. But we have to deal. If you cannot run a country that there is no independent arbiter, if not, you end up in problems.
Arbiter fails the state. Case in point, the nearly $3 million that has to be paid out. In case reviews, you've put the backlog court in place. It's been doing stuff that's under the Swift Justice movement, but case reviews are still failing. And another question: how many instances does the state have of paying out former inmates from the Bodily Correctional Facility?
That information I don't have, but again, these are things that are not desirable. Not desirable. Not desirable. But I just want you I want to tell you something else. There's a maxim in law. He's a lawyer, he'll tell you. It's better 1 million men go free than one innocent man gets punished. Isn't that true? It's a very hard situation because again, you must look at our history. When you say them things, people get emotional about it. We come from a history where people were just accused of doing things that they never did. People were lynched for committing no crime, although a politician of high repute in St. Lucia says that the Prime Minister should be flogged on the square. That's what we have that seems to just pass away unless I say it. That the Prime Minister should be flogged. You know what's the meaning of flogging? You know the amount of people that were flogged for not doing anything? But there's a high-profile politician who says that the Prime Minister should be flogged on the public square, right? But so you see, we have to guard against all these things. Our history is shows that there must be independence of the judiciary. There must be, no matter how painful it is. And I know it's painful, Mrs. Stinney. It's painful. It hurts. It hurts me. But we have to understand there must be independence of the judiciary. This is why the government has spent, the Press Secretary for God said the millions of dollars we spend in giving the Eastern Caribbean Court of Justice, spend millions of dollars to give them premises at Gablewood Mall. You forgot that? At Orange Grove. Millions of dollars. Because we need to have a caliber of, and that's where your question is important. We need to have a caliber of human being in these positions who will understand the power of their position. But the emotion is terrible. And I feel, I'm Prime Minister, I can't go ahead and say these things, but I feel the pain, I feel it. I feel it. But again, young ladies themselves have to be very cautious. Very cautious.
Young ladies
Huh?
Young men too.
Yeah, true. We have to be very cautious. You see, there's a thing about we believe that people. It's a whole. This thing is a very interesting thing. When I'm trying to write a book, and of my life and my history, and in there I say a lot of things. I'll say a lot of things in that book. A lot of things, because I have my story. A lot of things that I said, I know why they said, are my story. But I will just leave it. Julian Hunt, a friend of mine, he's famous as saying, Julian Hunt says, my good friend Sir Julian Hunt, a very iconic individual, he says that once you're in public life, anybody can say whatever they want about you. When you leave your public life, it's your turn to say what you want about anybody. You understand? So when I leave public life, it's going to be my turn to say anything I want about anybody. But right now, I take it with a smile. I take it with a smile. I take it with a smile, and I go and I deal with the people that really matter. That's right.
One question first.
People.
Yes, Prime Minister. Moving a bit away from crime now, moving to the challenge of WASCO again. They have announced that new rates are coming soon. We do not know if it's a decrease or an increase, but we assume that it is an increase based on sources. How can a public utility company, which in many ways is not giving the service that it should, do something like that? What are your thoughts on it? And I know that the government has announced that there may be coming a public-private partnership between the government and WASCO to maybe help alleviate some of the issues. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, fine. In that regard, can we get any further updates so that we could?
I don't know if you realize, if you noted, if you heard that the government of Jamaica is spending $140 million in rainwater harvesting. 140 million. So a friend of mine sent for him, and I sent back for him for me. He sent me WhatsApp, and I have WhatsApp. Yeah, I have WhatsApp. So let me get a joke. People send things to me and or Facebook, so I tell them translate for me. So they have to download it and say for me. The government spent $140 million on water harvesting. $140 million. The government of Jamaica on water harvesting. That's the issue with water in this region. Making no excuses. I'll come back to your question about that question. You know the amount of rain that fell on Saturday? You don't know the rain, and you don't see how that water went into drains and you just see it. You know if you had collected that, what would happen?
Did you guys?
Me, I have 11 tanks. I never miss water, and not because I'm Prime Minister, because I harvest water. Yes, all my stuff, all my gardening, my car washing, all my pets comes through them. And then right now, I harvest water. I'm leading by example. I beg you. I mean, this morning I passed, I saw a drain, a down pipe, going straight, not only in the gutter, on the pavement. You know what? If you have that water, you know what happens? You don't even just buy this. We're going to be further trying to reduce the price of. I'm trying to get a loan from the CDB to give people tanks.
As in every household?
Trying to, starting from schools, etc. Because that has to be the short-term answer to our water problems. Because water is going to continue. There is the El Nino concept coming up, So even though WASCO is prepared and there's no rain, same problem, There's El Nino. You know about El Nino? Yes. Which they are forecasting drought. So even though you repair WASCO, and we're going to work in, because in fact I've just signed the IFC agreement for the PPP. Even though you do that, you still have water issues. We have to seriously deal with rainwater harvesting. Whilst we repair WASCO, we have to do it, people of St. Lucia. Because you're going to have, when we repair WASCO, there still are going to be some issues for water. Still going to be some issues. But the legislation says that the NOC can increase water rates, all rates, right? I know it's painful. Cabinet, by law, cabinet all has no jurisdiction over that. Cabinet has moral suasion. The government, as we speak, gives WASCO $1.2 million every month. We just advanced WASCO $1 million to pay their workers back pay. Right? Yes, we just advanced WASCO. You understand? It's again a situation that you don't want me to go into again because we're going to talk about so many times. We are the problem, you have to deal with it. But I've heard so, our hands are tied, but it's a situation that we are looking at. But the NOOC, basically, the cabinet, the government has no, by legislation, there's literally no control. But there's moral suasion that we want to.
But surely, Prime Minister, fine, your hands are tied. That's what you say. But
no, that's a law. No.
But okay, well, fine.
I want you to you see that? You see what you say there? That is so prevalent in St. Lucia. That's so prevalent. People who can shape opinions just say things that's not true, you know. Just say it. You know what he said so? That's what you see.
Yes, but Mr. Prime Minister,
the law says.
Okay, fine. That's what the law says,
yes,
right?
Thank you.
However, surely you could share your opinion on the fact that a company that does not provide the service that it should provide is now raising
No, wrong. Again, factual. It's not a company that is raising the rates. The NOOC. Then the Regulatory Commission. The point is,
you must still feel it, regardless of who is raising the prices.
That's the bottom line, but you must get the sequence right. That detail is important because too many things are said in St. Lucia with details that are wrong, premises that are completely wrong, but they've been said and they pass as history, as the truth. First of all, WASCO can raise its own rates. 1. 2, cabinet can raise WASCO's rates. 2. 3, the Prime Minister can raise WASCO's rates. 4, the NOOC is the one that deals with rates. That comes, the law says that utilities, WASCO, can go to the NOOC every 3 or 4 years. That's the law. That's the law. So, WASCO, the utility company, makes an application to the NOOC. The NOOC is a separate entity. The NOOC is not a ministry of government. It's a separate entity. The NOOC opines and comes with an opinion. Right? What you're saying is the reality of the situation. But the legal situation is very different. Same thing I was saying a while ago. Evidence, intelligence, and evidence. 2 different things. What you're saying is realistically, you're 100% correct. No water, how you can increase rates. Very, very correct. I agree with you. My power is the power of moral suasion or change the law. You want me to go and change the law as it relates to the NOOC, another story will arise. Oh, then politicians want to control. So you see? So it's complex. But you're right. You know, I'm right. I understand your annoyance. I understand what you're saying. But there are certain things that you have to go according to the law.
Okay, final question on WASCO then. You said that the legislation ties your hands in that regard. You do have a minister who oversees public utilities. Where does he come into play in that regard?
And if you look at it, you'll see the change. You see, you must follow.
I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Here's what we did. We found it was not, to use my words correctly, not inappropriate, but it was strange for the minister who overlooks public utilities to be the same minister who overlooks the NOOC. So I changed that in my cabinet. So now the minister overlooks the NERC, has a separate view because he's not in the business himself. Same way I did with consumer affairs. You see, these novel things that you must understand that, that's consumer affairs, right? So you're trying to set me up?
No, I'm not trying to set you up. I'm just asking you, I am just asking you, what role does he play in this regard?
His role is to look at the operations of the NERC.
Okay.
Yeah, that's his role. But when these things happen with the NERC, and again, I've said to these people, stop allowing politicians to take the blame for them. There were public hearings, you know what? You know what? The NERC held public hearings, Were you aware? Yes, the NERC held public hearings on water, and that's where people should go and blast them. The NERC held public hearings. Again, people always go to the thing after the fact, and they've been helped to attack. They've been assisted to blame politicians. But politicians, in that case, we had the last resort. But I agree with you, and then we're trying our best. The work on the pipeline in Gozile should have started. We're trying our best. We're going to be doing the work in Poile. That work should be completed anytime now, so the people should get a better supply. The pipeline from the Tibers Dam. So we're doing some work, but as I said before, it'll take. I said $200 million. I think it's a little more now. Okay. But we're going into that PVP. But your outrage is understood, and I will have no problems with your outrage. It's understood. I understand your outrage. And you see, that's why I wanted to import water, and I got blows. Not me, the hotels, not me. I got blows, huh? I got, as if it was for me, DBS, your thing falling, boy. I find this DBS. I find this DBS that the mic falling and thing. Let me make sure it's just all right. Is Jerry okay? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. Back on crime, I think something that we miss a lot when we speak on crime. Sure, you have the health effects in terms of patients admitted to the hospitals of woundings and gunshots, but then the psychological effects of that on communities, the emotional effects, and how that affects a lot of children and the
trauma.
So what would be done to assist residents, neighbors, friends, loved ones in terms of processing the grief, processing the trauma? And sometimes you hear people and relatives of people who are gunned down. They'd say, well, I may know ABC, but I won't speak because I fear one. So how would the government really work to address these things?
First of all, you have to go to the root of the problem, right? The Ministry of Education, we are budgeted for them to get at least 12 new counselors, social workers, right? We started the truancy unit to cause children to go back to school. We are expanding on TVET education to make children go to school to learn it's a series of interventions. But these interventions, they take time. These interventions take time. And then it's a series of interventions that take time. But in terms of the trauma, I feel it. I know there are young ladies who petrified because of what happened. Petrified. You understand? So that's why it's important for us to talk about these things. Talk about it in not the way it's been talked about by some people. Let's talk about it in a more holistic fashion. Let's talk about it in a more soothing, in a more soothing way. Let's share experiences. And I think that is what we need now. The time for blame, always somebody must always take responsibility. Somebody must take responsibility. But we have to start having the discussion in a more humane way. Let's have groups of people who have been affected. So I think communication is one of the easiest ways where people can share experiences. You understand? I think that is that's a way we can try to deal with it, right? That's the way we can try to deal with it. Experience sharing. Looking at ways and means. I said that we haven't got to generate so much anger, because that doesn't help. It doesn't help, because there's enough natural individuals. No, it's not the entire society. It's one man who did that. One person, not two people or three people. But he's a victim of circumstances. It is said that people right now come from the army. That's something we have to look at. There are people, St. Lucians who go train, who go and fight wars. Right? Right or wrong? Yeah, people go and fight wars. There are a number of hundreds of St. Lucians who are in the US Army, who are in the British Army, who are going to be fighting wars, who are going to be deployed. Now, this is something that now we need visas to go to the UK. So, again, it's a complex thing. Ms. Motor, I'm glad you understand that. I'm very happy. I see you understanding. I'm very happy you sing, because I know sometimes that we have to listen to the people higher than us in these jobs. I understand that. I was there. Very, very complex, There are hundreds of solutions who have fought war, And you know about post-traumatic these experiences. So it's been very complex. How do you tell a young man who is unemployed in St. Lucia, if he gets a chance to go and join the US Army or the British Army, that time not to go? But are these guys always ready to come back in the society? Are there any psychological evaluation of these guys? Are they? Right. And these guys are not policemen, these guys are soldiers. You know what soldiers do? Very complex, extremely complex, I mean, sometimes I sit at home in my more quiet moments and I say, why am I in that job? Very, very complex. Something we never look at, I don't know if that's ever come to people's consciousness. There are hundreds of St. Lucians who are soldiers, who trained as soldiers, who have been deployed, who will come back home. And when you commit a crime, they send you back home, The same countries that train you. When you misbehave, they send you back home, Right back, yeah. These are things we have to deal with, I mean, the same countries that make you, So you see how complex it is? And these conversations are very important. Seriously, deal with the complexity of these things. Very, very complex. Not as simple as some people make it sound. Very, very complex. The mind. Fellas went to Iraq. There are fellas now fighting in the solutions right now in Iran. Yeah, solutions in Iran now. There are solutions, They born Grosile and Marchand and Vieux-Fort and in an area in St. Lucia, there are about 100 people come from one area in St. Lucia who are in the British Army. There's a minister of government. 4 of his brothers are in the army. You understand? And, so what do? You can't tell them not to go. The same thing with our nurses. And as soon as you commit something about, they send you right back to where you came from. Yes, Ms. Martin.
Prime Minister, shifting back to water for a bit, countries like Bermuda, it is mandated legally that when you build, you have to have tanks and rainwater harvesting. Has the government considered changing the country's building code to reflect this?
In fact, I've been asking about it, and I've been told that there is a provision, I don't know if it's enforced, but we'll have to probably look at that. But there is a provision in the law that speaks about water, not rainwater harvesting, water harvesting. But I'll double check. But if not, very shortly we'll have to do that. Very, very shortly, because more houses are going up, and water is going to be a scarcity. Water is a problem, big problem. With El Nino coming up, it's going to be worse. By the way, hurricane season is next week. I hope people begin to understand. I want to call a meeting of NEMAC, of national emergency, as soon as possible, for us to begin preparing for the hurricane season. Because even though it is said that there may not be as many furious storms, one storm. Why is that falling? DBS, why are you falling so much? One storm can create a lot of problems. Yes.
Shifting gears back to the vendors, your statement last week, you stated that there would be a report coming in, and that once vendors met the requirements or criteria, the government would assist. Would you be able to highlight what that criteria is?
Not yet, because we have to look at all the circumstances. There's an argument, there's a line of thought that says that there are vendors who owe $140 a month, they owe $7,000. I don't know, I haven't seen the report. I want to speak on evidence base. I've instructed the Cashier's City Council, Constituency Council, to give us a report, the number of vendors, what they owe, how long they owe, so we can come to a conclusion, to a solution. But I still think that there should be some loss of income, they should have some benefits. There should be. Okay. Have a good week. Bye-bye. Take care.
We have come to the end of this Monday's pre-cabinet press briefing, and of course we appreciated your presence here, appreciated the discourse, and I look forward to seeing you next Monday. Have a good day.
Welcome to this Tuesday.